The law is slow, but justice does prevail most of the time. The law doesn't move fast, it never has, but it moves forward. And when it finally arrives, it's hard to stop it. What feels like chaos right now is actually what the legal system looks like when it's working. Let's get into it. So, the law is designed to be slow on purpose. Law is not reactionary. It's a process that was designed to be slow because that slowness protects against abusing it. That's the exact reason why it was designed that way. And fast justice would be super emotional, and slow justice gives it more legitimacy. Speed might feel satisfying. Wanting to see the result right away might feel satisfying. Oh my God, he graped a woman. I want him in jail today, tomorrow, like right away, life in prison. Like, it might feel satisfying to see somebody go to prison right away for the bad things they do, but having the process that we have, which is due process, it's what actually gives legitimacy to the law. It's what allows our country to function in the capacity that it does. And how laws are created in America, unlike in any other country, is the people, me, you, all of us, we get together and through elections, we ask legislation who represents us, the representatives, right? We ask them to write laws that we would like to see enacted. And then, of course, executives enforce them. And then the courts interpret and apply them. So you might say, I think it's wrong for a company to not have some form of customer service. And so you might say, I think it should be a law that a company should have customer service in some kind of way or whatever, right? I'm just using this as an example. So you get some petitions together, you get some people to talk about this, people start protesting this as what should be, whatever. And it forces the legislative branch, the representatives, to say, okay, this is what the people want. So then they go in and they have to be the voice of the people. And then, of course, there's the naysayers, and some representatives will hear the other side and they'll become the voice of the people that are against that idea and why. And then that works its way into debate for for a substantial amount of time until there is somebody who constructs a bill and then tries to get it passed through the House, in which case they all vote on it, voting in favor of whatever their constituents or what they believe their constituents want them to vote. They go in and then they make that vote. Once it passes that, it now goes to the Senate, where the Senate is then supposed to do the same thing, although now because of corruption through the financial or through the campaign finance systems, a lot of senators now would be like, well, how does this affect our billionaires boy clubs? How is this going to affect our donors? Which is not really how America is supposed to work. And that is the key problem. However, when it's working effectively the way it's supposed to, the Senate comes together and they vote the same way that the House votes, which should be based on what their constituents are asking them to do. And when that vote finally goes through the House and the Senate, which takes some time, There's things that get pulled out of the bill. The House might argue that they'll only agree to it if certain things get added or certain things get taken away. The same thing happens at the Senate level. And then once it goes through that process, the president then has to sign off on it. And then, of course, whoever the sitting president is, he either will or veto. But there's a limit to the veto process. So the president at that point is going to basically, in most cases, if he realizes that this is what the people decided, he's going to sign it into law. And then, of course, it still needs to go through the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court needs to agree that it's constitutional. And then once that entire long process happens, that is how a law is created. By the people. And by all of the things that represent the people. Okay? That's why they call the White House the people's house. Okay? Now, the idea that, well, my president won and your president lost, therefore, you don't get no say, you don't get no representation, we just get what we want and you don't. That is fascism and authoritarian behavior. And at the end of the day, we don't live in a country like that. We just don't. And even if there's somebody who wants to try to make it a country like that, it ain't never going to happen. So if you're my Democratic friends and you're watching this right now, or you're the people that are out there that are watching this video right now live, or even if you're Republicans and you just can't stand where this administration is taking things, no matter who you are, I want you to know that even though we don't get to see law and the results of law take place, sometimes we don't get to, it prevails. If you turn on a true crime network right now, you could watch many videos about some murderer who killed someone 40 years ago. And 40 years later, the law catches up. Now he's being indicted, but the family of the child that got killed or the person or whatever, they're dead and gone. They didn't even get to see justice happen. And that's sad. But that doesn't mean that justice doesn't happen. That is the point of this video that I really want to stress to all of you out there that are so worried that all the things that you're witnessing right now at the administrative level are people abusing their power and that nothing's going to happen to them. Because that's not the case. It's not the case. The system was designed to assume that bad actors will exist. And it built guardrails around them. And you might say, well, yeah, but, you know, this administration, they're finding ways to remove those guardrails. Sure. And maybe they will temporarily. They can't really remove the guardrails because they would need legislation to pass to remove those guardrails officially. An executive order doesn't remove guardrails. It just temporarily takes them down until that president is no longer in office. So everything that the current president has done can be undone immediately. It can be undone. And courts don't respond to noise. They just don't. They respond to evidence. They respond to evidence. People can sit online and you can debate and argue over what you think is true and what you think isn't true and this and that. And sure, everyone has a right to an opinion, but what is true will be established in the court of law. The law that we created. The judges are the last bastion of doing the will of the people. Because once the people and our system get something enacted into law, the law is king, not an individual. The law is king. And so once that happens, courts and judges all over the country, from top to bottom, from lower courts to the Supreme Court, judges, yeah, sure, you could have some corrupt judges here and there, but it doesn't matter. Because in totality, there's too many judges for them all to be on the same page corruption-wise. The judges will always be the last bastion of doing the will of the people. which is to put people or hold people accountable for violations to the law. So the stuff that you're seeing right now with Kristi Noem blatantly lying in front of the whole world about things that we all saw with our eyes, and maybe that's the way you feel. Maybe, and I could be contrarian about it, maybe there's certain evidence to this whole thing that we didn't get because we live in an internet bubble where we're only fed one side of the story. Maybe. Just maybe. That is a possibility. If that is a possibility, it will come out in court. Now, you might say, yeah, but Tommy, this administration, like, look at the shooting in Minnesota. They went out of their way to try to, like, keep them from being able to investigate. Sure, they could try, but they don't have any authority to keep the state of Minnesota from investigating a homicide. They just don't have any authority, and it's a state crime. So it's not like, even if they found out that or convicted the guy of murder, it's not like this current administration can wave their hand and pardon the guy or make sure he doesn't serve any time in jail. They can't. They can't. And so what I'm trying to tell you assuredly is that the things that you're seeing right now, those scary, very scary, albeit, and obviously there's going to be lives lost. We've been here before. This happened under the Nixon administration. If you look up the shootings that took place where they shot and killed 4 students on a college campus. Yeah, for protesting. Protesters gunned down. This ain't the first time that this has happened. And I'm not saying that, it's not bad. Obviously it's bad. But it's happened before. We survived it before, and we'll survive it again. See, judges and courts do not respond to news headlines, and they don't respond to your feelings. They don't follow your timelines. They move with filings and procedure. And that lags behind the trending social media. And now here's the thing. Years ago, because information traveled slowly, we often didn't really know about a lot of things that were going on around the world as quick as we do now. It would take a while for information to come across our table. And so therefore, even though justice was slow then, it didn't seem as slow because the facts came in almost as slow as the law was going to do anything with them. We don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world now where social media makes it so information spreads super fast, like lightning speed. Instagram Reels, TikTok Reels. We're on the internet, our phones, notifications, email, news on Google, whatever it is. All this information just flies. So you're finding out things way fast. But the courts don't care about the internet. They don't care about your phone. They don't care about your social media. They don't care about the YouTubers you follow, not even me. They don't care about any of that shit. Because the court only cares about the due process of the law. And that is having proceedings, having filings, having lawyers present facts and information, having juries decide on those facts and that information, and come up with a verdict in a court of law. And that's just the way it is. And unfortunately, justice is not always served. Most of the time it is. But what it is almost always is delayed. Justice is very delayed. And accountability can arrive years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, even 40 years later. Department of Justice John Mitchell, who was the DOJ under Nixon, was indicted. He was indicted and was given a prison sentence. He was later pardoned, but by I believe the next president, Gerald Ford. But he still was indicted and went to jail when he was a Department of Justice. So make no mistake about it that even though accountability arrives way later, it doesn't make it any less real. And it doesn't mean it isn't going to happen or that it didn't happen. It does. It just happens way later than you would like it to. And the historical truth, most major abuses of power were punished. After elections, after careers have ended, after the attention has moved on, but the law doesn't need urgency. It just needs jurisdiction. I mean, when you look at what happened with Puff Daddy, right? You know, granted, you know, he got charged with a lot of crimes that they couldn't prove. That's how it works sometimes. But some of the crimes that they could prove are crimes he did years ago. Years ago. And I'm sure for a long time, people thought, man, the people in power, man, it's crazy. They could just do whatever they want. They could just be above the law. No, they can't. No, they can't. Ain't that right, Harvey Weinstein? Ain't that right, Jeffrey Epstein? We've seen it time and time again. Jeffrey Epstein's abuses went on for decades. Decades. But they got him eventually. They got him eventually. Okay? And I'm sure he would have taken down a lot of other people too, were it not for, you know, certain people wanting to cover their own ass. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because what happened, happened. And if laws were broken, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And something that I want to tell you is that the people of America, the citizens, you and me, just regular people, we are the core institution. We are the anchor. We're not only the people who vote in the people who make a lot of these decisions, but governments don't enforce themselves. We enforce them. We enforce them. Courts don't function without legitimacy. Laws don't matter without participation. They need us to participate. You can't have a system without the people participating in it willfully. We have to be okay with the system or the whole thing collapses. And how do we participate in it? What sustains it? Our votes, jury duty, compliance of the law, willful compliance, engagement. This is how we show the government that we're participating. This is how it all works. And we are the true authority. The people are the true authority. We, the people of the United States of America, are the authority. Always have been, always will be. Authority doesn't come from force. It comes from our willing participation. That's the only place it comes from. Systems collapse when people disengage, not when they're stressed. And you might see the system being stressed heavily right now. You might see that. We all do. But the system has been stressed many times in history. But as long as we are participating, this is the reason why there's an effort to get you to believe that your vote won't matter. There's an effort to get you to believe that it's all rigged now. That is the way that you get people to remove their participation and you lose your agency. That's how you lose your agency. Frustration doesn't break democracy. Withdrawal will break it. And if you are sitting there watching Instagram Reels every day and you're looking at ICE shooting people and you're looking at, or if you're on the other side and you're watching Fox News and they're making you think that liberals are tearing down America and all this type of stuff, the truth of the matter is that what's true will unravel itself out in court. What's true will not be spoken on CNN or Fox or CBS or ABC or MSNBC. The truth will not be in a reel on Instagram. The truth will not be in a short on YouTube or a video on Snapchat or TikTok. The truth will unravel itself in a court. It'll always wind up in a court. And evidence will be brought forth. And what can be proven will result in people being held accountable to the law. And yes, even presidents, even former presidents, even Department of Justices, even leaders of Department of Homeland Security, even FBI directors, even Department of Defense secretaries, all of them. We may think that temporarily it looks like they're above the law. And sure, right now they're acting like as if they are. But over time, you are going to find that no one is. That's just the truth. Our democracy is going to survive because people keep choosing it. Not because it's easy. Democracy's hard. And it involves a lot of different people with different opinions to have to live together, to have to get along with each other. It involves a lot of different people to have to learn to be neighbors even if they hate each other. And it sucks. But as long as we choose democracy, that's what we'll have. We live in a representative democracy. And in a representative democracy where the law is in control, the law will come. Make no mistake about it. Bad boy, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? So, why the political temperature will change after the primary deadlines, and you're going to see that this is going to happen, because I've had a lot of people ask me, well, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to explain it to you like this. We're about to enter the midterms. And by the way, Lance, I'm glad you're finding comfort in my words. If you're finding comfort in what I said, you're going to really like what I'm about to say right now. So, the midterms are coming up, and the way that it works is that every state has their own election. No, Trump can't stop that. No matter what, there's not anything he can do to stop that. Okay? Not anything. Now, if he declared an insurrection or said the Insurrection Act and decided to send military into the cities, quite frankly, it looks scary that he could do that to one city at a time. But believe you me, to be able to do that in every liberal city across the country at once during election, it's just not possible. And people need to get rid of that fear. That is not going to happen, okay? Trust me. And if it ever did, if something like that ever did happen, you're talking America's got at least 180 million able-bodied people that are not in support of this movement. So even if we were up against the 2.5 million that follow him on Truth Social and the 2.5 million that take up our armed forces, they would still be outnumbered by 175 million people. Okay? Meaning that you're talking like there'd be, pretty much like 40 of us to every one of them. Look, that's not going to happen. So, Lance, I know I'm not live on YouTube. My videos go live on YouTube, or I put my videos on YouTube later. What I want to explain to you guys is this. The primary deadlines lock in challengers. So across the state, we're about to have a primary for the midterms. That means that it's not just a Republican versus a Democrat for every Senate seat and every House seat. They also have a primary, just like they do in the presidential election, where a Republican and a Republican are going to fight for that seat. A Democrat and a Democrat are going to fight for that seat. And then after the primaries, the winning Democrat and the winning Republican will go against each other to try to win that seat. So in that primary, right now, what Republicans are doing right now is not supporting Trump. They quietly hate this man. There's been numerous Republicans that have leaked information to the press that the vast majority of them think this is a slum of an administration. They've cut them off at the knees. They've taken away all their power to legislate, and they can't stand them. They can't stand them. Trump, J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson, the whole lot of them. They can't stand them. But why they won't say anything yet is because the filings for the primaries are going to be happening. Every state's different, but the deadlines are usually from the end of February through about the beginning of June. And in that process, every state is going to have a deadline on what people are going to be able to file to run for a Senate seat or a House seat. The people in the Republican Party on the right, in the representatives and in the Senate, if they look and see that there isn't someone who's outwardly and vocally MAGA that is running against them, then they're going to have no fear to denounce this administration. And when they have no fear to denounce them, over the course of between February and June, we are going to start seeing a lot of Republicans turning on this administration. Period. It's a house of cards. It's built on nothing. The whole thing is going to fall apart. So make no mistake when I explain to you that when this occurs, there will be convictions. I believe, I could be wrong, but I do believe that there will be an impeachment proceeding for Pam Bondi, for Mike Johnson, for Pete Hegseth, for Donald Trump, and for J.D. Vance. And I believe that they will literally go boop, 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 and they will one by one, all of them. They won't be able to one by one with Mike Johnson because he'll have to be sworn in as the president before they can do that. But he probably will get sworn in, and then there'll be a move to impeach him also. And when these things happen, even if they don't impeach him, we will survive until the next election. And we will end up taking the House and the Senate, or I don't know about the Senate, but we'll for sure take the House in the wave of blue that happens in the midterm, which will allow us to do a lot of things like investigate people, investigate into some of these people, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that will we go back to the country that we were? Probably not right away. There's going to be a pretty long recovery process, and rebuilding relationships and trust with our allies overseas is probably the most detrimental part of it all, because that's going to be tough to do. So I'm not telling you that everything is going to go back to the way things were. But what I am telling you is that we will make it through this. We will make it through this. The law is slow, and it looks scary right now. But once those MAGA threats disappear in the primaries, the incentives will shift. Distance from Trump will increase, and politicians will be in self-preservation mode. They'll be more worried about their careers than anything else. And, elected officials follow risk, not loyalty. They don't care about loyalty. They care about risk, and they care about their own careers. They don't even follow ideology. Okay? Politics doesn't really move on courage. It moves on incentives. They only care about what's going to incentivize them the best. And that's just the way it is. And accountability often follows power losing protection. Remember that. For people to be held accountable, sometimes power needs to change. And that's it. Power shields behavior until it doesn't. You're only in power until you're not. And then you become exposed to the legal process. And allies step back in. And institutions reassert the boundaries of our laws. And the law waits. The law waits until power stops protecting itself. And then it gets you. And that's just how the law works. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't rush, and it doesn't panic. It keeps records, it builds cases, it waits for the moment when accountability can't be ignored or overshadowed by somebody's power. And if the law always outlasts power, what happens when people stop believing it won't? Right? So I hope many of you can understand, no matter what political side you're on, this is the greatest country that's ever been conceived. And in the end, the people that you see abusing their power now will all come to heel. Make absolutely certain of that. Anyway, my name is Tom Kane. This is another episode of the Executives Playbook. And please, this video will be on YouTube for those of you who want to watch it later. That's also kind of more of the edited version. But please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and please leave a comment if you have anything to say. I look forward to hearing everything that you guys have to say. I'm so grateful that you guys watch. And if you do subscribe, please hit the bell. And that's pretty much it. You guys have a wonderful night. Thanks.